Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be looking into this album. Today is the 25th anniversary, and in my opinion, this is one of the best albums in the genre of metal, or specifically in death metal genre. And today we're going to be looking into Covenant by Morbid Angel. This is the band's overall third, well technically fourth album. This was released on June 22nd, 1993 through Giant Records. Now the reason I say technically fourth is before their first album, Altars of Madness, they had sort of like another album called Abolishment of Desolation. I believe that's what their album was called, but they didn't put it out at the time. It was recorded before Altars of Madness, so instead Altars was their first album, and they put out Abolishment like a couple years before after that. And then in 91 they put out their second album, Blessed Are the Sick, which is the previous album before this one. And then in 1993 we have Covenant, and a lot of people would consider this one of the best death metal albums of all time. I'm kind of have to agree with it for sure. And this was sort of like, this album was sort of like recorded at the time when death metal was sort of like underground, but sort of like amongst to like where the people who are sort of like aware of it. And I think it was sort of like when it was starting to like get well known with sort of bands like Death, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, bands of that nature. And I honestly think Covenant is still as brutally as wicked as any like other Morbid Angel albums, like especially with their later work. And honestly could consider this at their peak, like, or I should say the best Morbid Angel to date. Like everything about it is perfect, like with the best in the era. Well, it's sort of like the lineup with this album, which would be David Vincent on bass and vocals, Trey Zagoth on guitar, and Pete Sandoval on the drums, I believe was the lineup on this album. I could be mistaken. Let me take a look. Yep, I definitely believe so. So they were like a three-piece at this time. I forget who they had playing guitar, I guess, for that album cycle, but yeah, I'm getting way off track. Like the production on this album is just superb. Like everything is where it needs to be. Especially recorded in ’93. David's vocals are just, my God, just brutal. And just the bass, his bass, you can definitely hear audible, or is pretty much cuts through in the mix with like Trey's guitars. Like the guitar tone on this album is pretty good, very beefy and just very crunchy sounding. And just the drumming from, what can I say about Pete Sandoval? In my honest opinion, I think he's my favorite death metal drummer, period. Not my all-time favorite drummer, just my favorite drummer in death metal. But yeah, let's go track by track with this album. Now, opening up this album is the song Rapture. Sure, a track of many talents. One of which would be a sort of like the lack of like preface or an intro. And that's one of the things I admire about this album, is that Morbid Angel focuses less on creative, actively structured package, and with more of a straight, right to the point approach, containing much less continuity than the last album, Blessed Are the Sick. Also, it's apparent that this also has a more of a polished sound to improve the listening experience, which I find it to be great. Great. Not much to say about the actual song itself, since it's a classic and pretty much everybody should know it if you're a fan of Morbid Angel or a fan of death metal in general. It's very, very kind of like out of the norm, with a very intense and sporadic guitar solo, which I think adds to sort of like the overall chaos that Morbid Angel sort of like likes to depict in their music. And it does everything an album opener should. It sort of like summarizes this album perfectly. And then kickstarting immediately after Rapture is what we like to call Pain Divine. And this sort of like the two beginning tracks go hand in hand. And it still has got that subset that makes the Morbid song, Angel song, excellent. Can't even speak today. Hey, innovative guitar riffing and drums that beat the head to the pulp are in full force. Then we go into World of Shit, The Promised Land. I mean, right away we could tell that the lyrics on this song are based upon the occult and what most people consider vulgar topics, but I really appreciate that this track is essentially the culmination of all of that. That the lyrics are absolutely explosive, having the attitude of not giving a fuck about anything anymore. What's more is that this music perfectly matches sort of like the concept with some sort of like sludge influences in there. And I kind of like get like the euphoric notions when Dave sort of begins to sing. Overall good song. Vengeance is Mine, and I feel like the the songs are getting shorter, but arguably are packing more within the quality. The entire duration of Vengeance Mine is spent on the pure essence sense of what makes Morbid Angel amazing. I do believe it separates itself from the prior songs due to its more technical approach and excellent drumming that holds in line with in either flanks of like the guitar and vocal onslaught. And every second is crucial, and it's like sort of has a neoclassical solo and it makes it sort of like is in there. And one of the few times where you can understand sort of like the evil vocals. And finishing the song is probably the only time where the drums become more of the center stage and guitar really listens to what they have to say. Good song. The Lion's Den, which the song for all intents and purposes is just showcases of extreme death metal. And however, it's also what makes it a standout. That was like the excellent sort of middle section on here. Neither a verse nor a chorus, but a breakdown. And the words that Dave spit out just work so fucking well. Well, in conjunction, which the quickly paced drums, and it actually just like motivates the calm metal fans, like with the song saying kill them all for slander, kill them all and mute their ways. Just, yeah, their song sort of like wins. Blood on My Hands, in comparison to the rest of the fantastic album, this song is a pretty good song. It sort of has a very good revolving riff. Yeah, Angel of Disease, and this album just keeps on going. And it has sort of like a very thrash inspired track sort of where it really has very higher pitched, more demonic sounding vocals. And I have to say about 7 or 8 mini solos from Trey, the guitar work is nothing but astounding, and I just like the composition of this song brings sort of like a slower middle section to keep the listener at bay. But then I just love the carcass of the rhythm section. Just the bass and drums are really great. Sworn to the Black, the penultimate track sort of like brings nothing new to the table, but sort of bring returns of like Dave's sort of like deeper vocals. And I love sort of like the more traditional song structure, but I just love like sort of like in the middle or like 2 minutes in, there's sort of like a messily chaotic guitar work in there, which is just ugh. And then we go into Nar Metaru. It's pretty much less than a 2-minute track of an album. And yeah, it's sort of like the calm before the storm, I would have to say. And then the album closes with God of Emptiness. And one way to describe this song is just epic. Yeah. And I feel like it just very slow and just very brooding. Yeah. Without further ado, Morbid Angel's Covenant is just a solid, one of the best death metal albums of all time. Probably, in my opinion, my favorite Morbid Angel album, period. If I were to give this a score, I'd probably give this a solid 10 out of 10. It is that fucking good. But yeah, that's my review of Covenant, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this album, since it's the 25th anniversary. And I'll see you all in the next video, and keep it metal.